Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Sunday, December 6, 2020, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Well, it is Sunday, and that makes it a rules retrospective day. And we're continuing looking at the Expert Hirelings, in particular, the Mercenary Soldiers in the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. And that is... it's been going pretty well. I mean, we took a whole section just on the Sage many weeks ago now. But it's a heavy section. There's a lot in there. And it really required more than just a single show to deal with it, to get into it, to go through all of it. So I expect that with all the subsections involved in Mercenary Soldiers, that we may be at this, not just this show, but maybe one more. I don't know. We'll see. Let's dive right in, and we will find out as we go. Mercenary Soldiers. All right. Remember, these are expert hirelings, so these are not just henchmen, the kind of individual that an adventuring party can pop into a tavern and hire some not even, almost not even a first level, henchmen. You could get torch bearers, you can get litter bearers. Those are even some expert hirelings. Good old henchmen, you're just talking about struggling men-at-arms. The lowest of the low can barely swing a sword or a club, but they can be a rabble if you get them in high enough numbers. And then you've got men-at-arms who actually are not quite, but close to on par with first-level fighters. People that have some skill with arms and can wear armor and use multiple weapons and become adapt to strategies and tactics that you might ask them to perform. Hold an area, guard an area, various things like that. But mercenary troops, they're a cut above. You're talking about getting skilled individuals that are specialists with their types of weapon and armor. These are people you're picking up that are potentially battle-hardened or at least blooded, have seen battle, have been in skirmishes, are trained beyond just this is the pointy end to stick them with. So let's look at it a little more closely. Mercenary Soldiers. The likelihood of encountering any given type of mercenary soldier is strictly up to you as a DM. A table below shows suggested probabilities as well as typical numbers. Types will seldom be mixed. If more than 5 are encountered, one will be a sergeant, a leader type, or equivalent of a non-commissioned officer. It is urged that one sergeant for every 10 troops be used as a minimum figure with regard to regular soldiers and leader types. Captains will also have to be hired for each sort of troop type. Note that regular soldiers are 0-level men-at-arms with 4 to 7 hit points each. but they're still specialists, and that's what makes them a little better. So checking out this table here, percentage dice table, note that the asterisk with lieutenant if more than 10 soldiers, the double asterisk with lieutenant if more than 10 soldiers, with captain if more than 20. Notice the top tier from 89 on up is select any type of missile troop, select any type of footman, select any type of horseman, select any type of specialist or leader. Now we'll look at the bulk of this table. And it never hurts to run your eyeball down the percentage die score on the left-hand side before we start, just to see. You've got almost 5% on the longbow, and then you've got 6% on the archer, short bow, artillerist, just a couple, and then there's a captain that's available potentially, crossbowman, footman heavy, footman light, footman pikeman, lieutenant, hobilar. This is a kind of a weird hobilar heavy and hobilar light. So I think, and we'll get into it later when we get the description, but hobilar traditionally is a light cavalryman. So the idea that there's heavy and light here is a little odd if you're used to that word and wondering where he's going with that. Because you'll notice he doesn't have knights. Or he does. Well, okay. Horseman heavy, horseman light. So probably the difference being that this is a lighter horse, not the heavy war horses that you would see in regular cavalry. We'll get to that when we get into descriptions. Horseman archer, horseman crossbowman, horseman heavy, horseman light, horseman medium, sapper / miner. These are specialist engineers for sieges and whatnot. There's a sergeant. We've got fairly good percentage of chances for sergeants. Slingers, not as many as all the various archer types or crossbowmen, but still available. Slingers tend to be very loosely organized troops with little armor in ancient times, and this carries over into medieval times. So for a medieval fantasy game, that's what we're looking at. Look at the numbers here. Roll a d10 for the number encountered. All right? 1 to 4 is going to be the lowest possible. And once you get up into 8 and 9 and 10, that is when those lieutenants and captains need to be added in. But look at the numbers you can get. You can run into 60 heavy footmen all at once. And this is not just an encounter table, although it says number encountered. This is a table to be used when you're hiring troops for defending a stronghold, maybe even going to war against one. So if you're putting together a fighting force, this is where you're looking on these tables here. These expert hirelings are what you're looking to grab up. Let's look at the descriptions of the various types that they have on the table there. Archer, longbow. These troops will be able to operate as light infantry when not employing bows. They can use any typical weapon, for they must be strong and in good health to handle a longbow, is the implication there. Archer, short bow. These troops will not fight as infantry when not using their bows unless it is as a desperate situation. In extremis, They will fight as light infantry using short swords, hand axes, and similar weapons. You may desire to allow certain types, such as the historical Viking warrior types, to be exceptional. If so, these individuals will certainly demand longbowmen's wages. Artillerists. These troops are required to operate any missile engines larger than a heavy crossbow. Catapults, trebuchets, ballista. They will fight as light infantry only in extremis. That is, if your position is overrun and they can't get away. Hey, how you doing today? Footmen. Sarah says, footman heavy, footman light, enemy heavy. Fight, fight, fight. Nice. It's always good to have a couplet available to remind you that war is hell. It's important. as if we couldn't recall. Watch out. Captain was the next on the list. Remember, you could. It was 1 in 100 chance of encountering a captain. A captain is nothing more than a capable leader, a fighter of 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th level. Wowzer. According to the D10 score, 1 to 4, 5th, 5 to 7, 6th, 8 to 9, 7th, 0, 8th, but not capable of working upwards. A captain can command as many scores of troops as he or she has levels. 4th level enables command of 80 men. 5th level enables command of 100, etc. In addition, the level of the captain dictates the number of lieutenants which can be controlled. This is exclusive of sergeants and any auxiliary types such as servants, cooks, etc. The monthly cost of a captain is 100 gold pieces per level. So, for 800 gold a month, you can ostensibly hire an 8th level fighter as an expert hireling. We'll let that sink in for a while and come back and talk about not just the idea of spending 400 a month on a 4th level fighter, but what that means. Are they adventurers? They're fighters. Can they adventure? It's not really what their position in life is supposed to be. They're supposed to be leading troops in battles and wars, and supposed to be defending strongholds and all of this stuff. Dragging them out into a dungeon with you, I guess up to the DM possible. But they're going to want a full share, maybe more if you're hiring. Where you get the money, I don't know. But if you can scrape together as a group of, say, 2nd level adventurers, 400 gold, and you want to foray into a local tomb, you want to pay a month's wages to a 4th level fighter, well, this is where a 4th level fighter is going to say, well, I guess I could do this. The money's good, but I'm going to demand a share of the treasure, first pick of the magic items. And don't forget, when you're doling out the experience for these, you're supposed to be busting out the levels on this too. It's expected that a 4th level fighter is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And if you divvy up the treasure or the experience, let's say you have 3 2nd level adventurers in your group of player characters and you've got a 4th level fighter, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 levels of characters, of which he's 4. He's going to be looking for 40% of the treasure probably, and will be getting 40% of the experience. Even though he can't advance, he still soaks it up. You can't get that experience that way. Crossbowmen. These soldiers are able to use any sort of crossbow furnished. Each heavy crossbowman will typically desire a light infantryman to accompany him and act as a shield bearer, somebody to hold up a shield and keep them covered while they're cranking up their crossbow, getting it ready for the next bolt. Crossbowmen will bear handheld weapons and fight as Lightfoot if meleeed by enemy troops. So they're not just, when they get overrun, they get all stabby. Footmen, heavy. These troops are trained to fight in close formation. They do so regardless of the type of armor that they are equipped with. Weaponry can be sword and shield, axe and shield, polearms, etc. Light footmen. These soldiers do not fight in close formation. They are useful in rough terrain, woods, etc. Footman pike. These soldiers are heavy foot who are especially trained to fight with pikes and also maneuver with them. Mercenary pikemen will be high quality, not militia or levy quality. Heavy footmen can be placed in the center of a pike formation of 100 or more troops if these troops have trained for not less than 2 months with the pikemen. So you can use the pikemen as a sort of a human shield around these interior heavy footmen. I think the idea being that if there are casualties, they can utilize the pikes themselves. In this way, it increases their maneuverability, I assume. Certainly, once they get into the fray or they get overrun, these heavy footmen will have other weapons to bring to bear and perhaps relieve the pikemen in the front ranks and fight in close order. Then up at the front, be your best troops. Hobilar, heavy or light? All right, here's that distinction. I wasn't sure how he was making it. These troops are simply mounted infantry, able to use horses to move, but not capable of mounted combat. Okay, that's the distinction he's making. Thus, Hobilars ride to battle, but dismount to fight. Some provision must be made to care for the horses, or the Hobilars will leave 25% of their number behind to do so. Okay. That's interesting. So traditionally, Hobilar are light horse infantry. I don't know that there's anything against them using spears from the backs of their horses. Traditionally, they were fast. They could ride through terrain that normal heavy horse would get bogged down in. I think they were used largely in Wales and Ireland by the English. Originally, perhaps that's from a French term, Hobilar, but it was meant to be light cavalry. So it's a little different in D&D as Gary describes it, but it helps cover an area that it fills a gap by using a term that suffices. It fills a gap in the potential, in the range of mercenary troops you would want to have available. So it works in this case as troops simply mounted infantry, able to use horses to move, but not capable of mounted combat. Fair enough. Makes them a lot more maneuverable. I like this touch of having 25% need to stay behind to watch the horses if everyone dismounts and jumps into battle, because their horses are their lives, probably one of the more costly expenses too. Horseman archer, these light troops, generally nomadic types, undisciplined, and prone to looting. They will fight. That's something you can forego in your campaign. That's a little. That's a real world dig that you don't need in your games. They will fight hand to hand only if circumstances force this action upon them. They can wear leather, ring, or chainmail, and they can carry small shields for use when not plying their bows. Horseman crossbowmen. All such troops are armed with light crossbows, as heavy weapons are not usable on horseback. They are light troops, but they can wear any sort of armor. They will wield handheld weapons in combat if necessary. Heavy horsemen. These soldiers are trained to operate in close formation, stirrup to stirrup. They are able to use most weapons common to horsemen. Horsemen light. These troops are not trained to operate in close order or formation. They are useful skirmish raider types only. Horsemen medium. Similar to heavy cavalry, medium horsemen are trained to operate in formation, but they are generally smaller individuals on lighter horses and do not ride as close to their fellows. Lieutenant. The lieutenant is an assistant to the captain, or a leader in his or her own right. Fighter level is second or third, and the lieutenant can command as many decades, tens of troops, as he or she has levels. This is exclusive of sergeants, of course, which is to say sergeants still are needed for the various levels of troops you're controlling. A lieutenant serving under a captain extends the number of troops the captain can effectively command and control. The level of a lieutenant determines how many sergeants he or she is able to direct. These in addition to those normally serving with the troops. 2 or 3 additional sergeants who can do special duty. Message carrying, fighting in bodyguards, things like that, I imagine, can count as special duty. Or then again, you need pay sergeants when you're not actually in battle as you're organizing your troops. Overseeing building activities, things like that. Keeping track of weaponry, inventories of weapons, and making sure that they are distributed properly, kept up. Supply sergeants, of course, are renowned as special duty type sergeants that don't oversee troops directly. The monthly cost of a lieutenant is 100 gold pieces per level. They cannot progress in level. So none of the special officer types that we're finding in mercenaries, they achieve the level they achieve and then they are done. So you're not advancing them based on experience points and the such. Hiring troops is what they do. There you go. Yep, that can be done too. Glorious Zote. Sup, what are we talking about? We're talking about mercenary troops in 1st edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That is from the Expert Hirelings section. George says, I suspect there would still be morale checks for leaders and troops, even if battle hardened, depending on combat conditions. Absolutely, George. Yeah, there are always going to be morale checks based on, well, various things. Those most notably is going to be losses suffered. Generally, leaders will give a bonus to the morale check of a unit. So they will help maintain morale even in the face of losses or even heavy losses or unusual circumstances. It may be that a situation happens where enemy flies over the troops with a dragon riding. I know there's a great scene in, of course, Game of Thrones where the wagon train run by Jaime Lannister is beset by the Dothraki, but also Daenerys on her dragon, and she's just lining them up and burning them down. How do you maintain order in that situation? Well, for one, the leaders are shouting, "You won't get away, so don't bother running." They have cavalry. They will run you down and kill you. Your best chance to live is to fight. Offer them no chance to get away. And with luck, they will stick with you for some time. Let's look a little further here. Sapper Minor. These troops are required for any military operations which involve the siege machinery, towers, trenches, mines, etc. Although they will fight to preserve their lives, they do not fight as heavy footmen. They normally wear only light armor because of their duties, leather or studded leather if they are active. A sergeant. A sergeant is a leader of a small body of troops, a non-commissioned officer equivalent. All sergeants are first level, but incapable of progressing further. A sergeant can command up to 10 soldiers as an independent unit or assure orders from lieutenants or a captain are carried out. There must be one sergeant minimum for every 10 regular soldiers, and there can be one per 5. The monthly cost of a sergeant is 10 times the rate of the troops he or she commands, so a sergeant of heavy horsemen costs 60 gold pieces, one of light footmen only 10. Slingers are trained from youth up, as are longbowmen, and are thus rarely encountered. They can wear leather, including studded leather, padded or ringmail only, but they are also able to employ small shields and at the same time as they ply their slings. They are always light infantry, and they are able to use only lesser handheld weapons such as hand axes, clubs, short swords, and daggers. Non-human soldiers. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take a look over here and see. Yeah, we're going to finish up today because we'll press on beyond the usual time. There's only a couple minutes left, but there's not that much left. Non-human soldiers. Where are we at? Just want to check out the chat here real quick. Do you discover you hired a weak or green leader, someone who panics? That could impact troop morale as well. Yeah, if you want to get into the role-playing end of it. Glorious so no, I'm looking over your thing. No, I think the Autobot saw the word "your" and the word "idiot" here and decided you were potentially insulting somebody, or I don't know what. I don't know what their auto mods are geared toward. But you wrote a very dangerous creature where you do an intelligence check in order to resist fear, cower condition. And here's the twist. You save by rolling under the requirement because you'd have to be a real idiot in order not to run away for your life. Yeah, right? So actually running away is the actual save, huh? But yeah, this when it comes to morale checks, it doesn't have to be a dragon burning up the troops. Maybe there's a contingent of fire giants bearing down on the group, or maybe there's a special troop that is a demon or something that's so dangerous that and so unusual that the troops are just simply outclassed, and a morale check needs to be made. There can be various units of non-human troops available for a mercenary duty, but this depends on your milieu. Finally, I haven't had one for a while. A milieu. It is suggested that as a general rule, such troops be enlisted only where they can actually dwell, and only if the player character champions their cause, or as a minion of their alignment, religion, or the like, or is a racial hero. So I think we're talking, if you are a high-level elf, then maybe hiring other elves as your troops are possible. The types of soldiers available depends entirely on the race. See Monster Manual for such information. The less intelligent non-humans will serve for from 10% to 60% less cost, but these evil creatures will certainly expect to loot, pillage freely at every chance, and kill and probably eat captives. Careful how you're using some of these qualifiers in game. Fair warning. Dwarves will serve at double rates or at normal rates if they are basically aiding a champion of their cause and people. A hero of the dwarves. Gnomes and halflings will only serve in the latter case. Elves are a difficult case to handle, for they might serve against hated foes or for a cause, but in either event probably for greater cost and special considerations only. Half-humans, such as half-elves and half-orcs, I don't use them, may be found among either human contingents or with those of their non-human parent race. Possible non-human soldiers include bugbears, dwarves, elves, gnolls, gnomes, goblins, halflings, hobgoblins, kobolds, lizard men, orcs. So, along the lines of what you were saying in the chat and about morale checks, it may be that lizard men in your campaign are of such an unusual type. Say they are civilized communities are aware of them existing, but they never see them. Suddenly an army of lizard men comes and attacks a small village, and a mercenary unit is pulled together to fight them off. But this is a very weird circumstance. Sure, it backs to the wall, but it's so unusual. They're so vicious that it's hard to keep the troops in line when they see something like that approaching. So fair enough to say that within your own game, within your own campaign, you're going to want to... Thanks, George. You're going to want to make some decisions about your own campaign and how unusual certain things are, how unusual it is to have creatures like this. In some fantasy games, some people will run a setting where all of these things exist and they're well known and they happen all the time, and just fighting against orcs is just like fighting another nation, only one that you particularly despise, perhaps, and that's the only real difference, and we're going to fight them just like we would fight any human nation. So you have to make some decisions about how that fits in your campaign, how unusual it is, what that changes in regards to availability, and also morale checks, as we were talking about. So that's something we should dive into at another point. And I'm going to leave it at this. We've already looked at sages, so beyond that, I think we don't have a whole lot left of right? Once we get beyond sages, which was huge. I think I spent 2 sessions on sages. Then we get into sailors, scribes. Scribes was next. Scribes, ship's crew, a handful of other things, stewards, castellans. You know what? We'll take a last show next week to finish up Expert Hirelings. We did spend some time with henchmen in the past, I think. I'll double check that. That would be a very useful one to end on, though, if we haven't. Or maybe one to pick up the new year with. So we'll think about that. I want to thank everybody. Perfect timing. Thanks very much for following the show and chiming in on the stream chat when you get the chance. It is appreciated. I want to say thank you from the OK Grognard Show. Rules Retrospective Sunday. If you're not busy tomorrow, 10 a.m. Weekly news and announcements on Tuesday. Cartography and world building campaign discussion on Wednesday. GMing tips on Thursday. Building adventures on Friday. GM reviews on Saturday. Then back around the horn to Rules Retrospectives on Sunday. If you're catching up with us on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up on any videos you watch and enjoy. Feel free to make comments. If you have some constructive criticism or a very polite insult, feel free to add it. I'd rather have you talk about the show's theme, though, or maybe give us an attaboy just for covering it for you. So thank you very much for all of that. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.